There will be some cloud breaks, although there will still be some showers arriving across western Scotland, Northern Ireland into northern England. Mostly dry for Wales by the afternoon, as well as the Midlands, but for the south and southeast, outbreaks of rain, heavy at times, and as a result significantly cooler compared with Wednesday. That rain's out of the way by Friday morning, and then for most it's a much brighter start to the day. Sunny spells, but further showers are likely in places.
Don't miss your chance to win our Super Summer Giveaway. With your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering £135 for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster, Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on the
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think, pretty fairly priced products, and even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News. It's 11 o'clock. In a moment, headliners. But first, let's bring you the latest news headlines. And Tom Tugendhat has confirmed he's entering the race to become the next Tory leader, insisting he could win the next general election. He's announced that he would be prepared to leave the European Convention on Human Rights if it was necessary to restore control over the UK's borders. He said he's not just running to become leader of the Tories, but running to become the next Prime Minister. Shadow Home Secretary James Cleverly announced last night he's also running to take the party's top job. Others are expected to join the race. Nominations close on Monday. A man's been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving following a car accident which left 6 people dead, including 2 children. Shane Roller and his partner Shannon Morgan and their daughters, aged just 9 and 4 years old, were all killed when their car collided with a motorbike. The crash happened on the A61 near the village of Mapplewell in Barnsley in Yorkshire on Sunday afternoon. The married couple on the motorbike were named as Christopher Barton, who was 56, and 48-year-old Janine Barton. They were both also killed. Kent police say the stabbing of a British Army officer near barracks in Gillingham is not being treated as terrorism at the moment, but they're being supported by counter-terror specialists. Detectives are continuing their investigations after witnesses reported hearing screams for help just before 6 o'clock yesterday evening near Brompton Barracks. Locals rushed to help the uniformed officer, who'd been stabbed multiple times, just as the attacker, who was wearing a mask, fled the scene on a moped. A suspect was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder about 20 minutes later, after being pursued by members of the public. Police recovered knives at the scene. The victim, aged in his 40s, was airlifted to hospital with serious injuries. He's in a stable condition. Meanwhile, a police officer who was filmed kicking the head of a man lying on the ground at Manchester Airport has been removed from operational duties. The male officer is seen holding a taser over the man who's lying face down before striking him twice. Greater Manchester Police said firearms officers had been subjected to a violent assault before this, where they were punched to the ground, but it also acknowledged the concerns of the conduct within the video. 2 men were arrested on suspicion of assault of an emergency worker, affray and obstructing police, while 2 other men were also arrested on suspicion of affray and the assault of an emergency worker. 3 officers were taken to hospital for treatment, with 1 female officer having suffered a broken nose. In the United States, there have been pro-Palestine demonstrations in Washington tonight, with the US flagged, burned down and replaced with the flag of Palestine. All this as President Biden is set to address the nation from the Oval Office tonight. Meanwhile, a new opinion poll shows that Kamala Harris has a 2-point lead over Donald Trump, according to the survey by Reuters and Ipsos. That's a change from last week, when Trump was 2 points ahead of Joe Biden. And just lastly, a diver has discovered a bronze cannon on the shipwreck of a warship that was destroyed by a gunpowder explosion in 1665. The 17th century ship, called the London, formed part of a convoy sent in 1660 to collect Charles II from the Netherlands and restore him to the throne. The prized cannon was buried in silt and clay on the seabed, where the protected wreck lies in 2 parts just off Southend Pier in Essex. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. Time now for Headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your early look at the next day's papers with 3 comedians. I'm Stephen Allen, and tonight we've gone OGs. It's like that film where Captain Picard met Captain Kirk, although Kirk died at the end, spoilers. It's Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. Out of the 2 of you, which one would you say is Kirk and which one's Picard?
I thought you were going to say which one's likely to die by the end of the show.
Obviously, Leo.
Maybe that's what I'm implying with the question. You're both Kirks, aren't you? That's the problem.
I'm definitely Kirk.
Yeah, I don't like Star Trek. Everybody's like, Star Trek's so great, but it's communism in space.
I knew Leo would hate it. I thought you'd say it's for nerds and people who bullied at school.
Yeah. Nerds because they don't have money.
Nerds like communism because they think that eventually that the women will be distributed the same as the money. And they will get some.
That's what Star Trek was mainly about.
Yeah, I don't know if there was an episode. Maybe I missed the Deep Space Nine episode where they did that.
They don't. There's the subtext across the whole of the series,
and
also across.
If you look for it,
across the whole of communism. That's why everybody, all the people who support communism are ugly.
You're making me like communism now.
It's a record time. It's a personal best from going from a thing someone mentioned to you talking about communism.
Yeah.
You got there within less than a sentence.
Yeah.
It's the new PB. Cracking on. Right, let's take a look at Thursday's front pages. The Times goes with Labour plans thousands of offshore wind farms. The Daily Mail says, is this the end for our copper coins? The Guardian revealed rich Western countries lead global gas and oil expansion. The Telegraph, Tugendhat, I'm ready to leave the ECHR. Express, senior army officer stabbed outside barracks. The Daily Star says jaw swims up the Thames. And those are your front pages. Let the analysis begin. First, we have the Express, Leo.
So the Express go with senior army officer stabbed outside barracks. So this is the dramatic moment an alleged masked moped knifeman was arrested over the stabbing of an army officer in front of his wife, in front of the army officer's wife. He hadn't brought his own wife along to watch him. But yeah, this is a lieutenant colonel who was horrifically stabbed, and apparently he's suffering from serious injuries. His wife tried to apprehend the knifeman and stop the knifeman. The knifeman was armed with 2 10-inch knives, apparently. And it was funny, immediately there were claims that this was a mental health related issue, but I don't know how they can, I don't know if the mainstream media have got some sort of psychology unit that can tell from a couple of photos if somebody's, suffering from mental health issues, or if the police can tell just from scanning a crime scene, because it's got, obviously it's shockingly reminiscent of the tragic stabbing of Lee Rigby in Woolwich some time ago.
I mean, is it going too far out there to say, if you do something like this, you're not the full pack of what's in the head?
Right, you can assume your mental health's not ideal, is what you're saying.
Well, no, because there's a lot of people who commit crimes like this to pursue a political or ideological aim.
And that also might not.
I'm not going to name the people.
No, let's not do that.
I think we know.
Yeah. Nick, your thoughts on this?
Well, it's tricky to talk about it. 1, legally, because it's ongoing, and 2, without getting cancelled. And that's the sort of line. But, it's another Quaker from Ambleside causing trouble.
It's Quakers?
Yeah, so it's Quakers again. Look, things are getting horrible in the country. That we all know many of the reasons, and it's getting very nasty. And we saw that police incident as well with them stamping on the person in Manchester Airport, but the guy had allegedly broken a woman's nose, or one of them had broken the police officer's nose. Yeah. Some people were saying the police were too harsh, but I just think we're at a time where the police have got to get very harsh, or it's going to just kick off on the streets in a horrible way.
Yeah, and speaking to friends who are in the police, apparently morale, well, this is the Met Police, but morale is at an all-time low, and the sort of long-serving officers who are equipped to sort of deal with the rough and tough stuff, they don't want to do it anymore because they're not, they're risking their job and their reputation every time they go out and deal with something. If somebody's assaulted a police officer, broken her nose, I think it's fair to go in and deal with them pretty roughly. But if those officers decide to step back and not get involved, who's going to protect the country? Who's going to be that thin blue line?
The big difference as well is the cameras, isn't it? The fact that now everyone films everything from every angle. The multiple angles of that incident that you can find online.
Yeah. Well, they also brought in body cams to sort of show, police are probably being excessive. Most of what it showed is that actually police were telling the truth and the job's absolutely horrific, right? And then probably the left were like, I'm not sure about body cams, but yeah, it's absolutely horrific for police out there. We know there's this 2-tier policing, and there's a danger of politicised policing. What the police need to do is start getting the people you should be getting, and then deal with them harshly. That's why I'm not against the Manchester thing, with what we know about it so far. Yeah. And this is another horrific thing, obviously, but we can't say too much about it.
OK, we can move on, Nick, to the Telegraph. What are they going with?
Yeah, this one's less legal trouble. This is a Tugendhat. I'm ready to leave the ECHR. And, of course, Tom Tugendhat has entered the Conservative race. And he's known as a One Nation wet being my subjective opinion, I guess, but he is known as being on the One Nation side. And surprisingly, and perhaps not surprisingly because he's trying to get the right on board, he said he would leave the ECHR because it may stop us controlling our borders, which is something even Rishi Sunak wasn't quite prepared to say. Sunak sort of hinted that he might. So Tugendhat's gone a bit further than Sunak. But obviously he's up against Kemi and people like that, so he has to say something. He claimed in the piece that actually there's no division on gender. They said they all know what a woman is. They all want lower taxes. They all want better national security. They all want to cut down energy bills. So he claims that they're broadly aligned. It's just certain issues. Although it doesn't feel like that in the Tories. I mean, it feels like they're massively divided to me. But
yeah, is it still near enough to the election that we can say, well, why didn't you do any of those things for that?
Oh, massively. He says they've lost trust. And the big question is then, well, why should we trust you now? Oh, now you're going to lower immigration and taxes. But you didn't then, and you had 14 years. Yeah, so...
Or even worse, you didn't when you could have done. But now you say you will when you can't.
Yeah, exactly. It was very convenient.
Did that even make sense? It felt like it did almost. Have it as a tattoo.
But then I guess politicians are always better in opposition, aren't they? You know, they always got all the solutions when they're in opposition. But I think, you know, Labour, you can see just the fact that they're new and they've still got some enthusiasm for the job. They haven't been in there for 14 years. They're actually, you know, getting some stuff done. It's probably all the wrong stuff, but at least they're, you know, they're getting stuff done.
Something. Yeah, that's nice. Leo, we could look at the Daily Mail. What have they got?
So the Daily Mail have, is this the end for our copper coins? So as the Treasury orders no new coins for the first time ever and expects to mint no extra 1p's and 2p's in the coming years, the future of the 1p and 2p coins has been thrown into doubt. So how will cannabis dealers weigh out their produce now? It's going to be a disaster. I don't know. Apparently, a lot of these coins are in circulation, and there's enough in circulation. Nobody's really using them anymore because we all pay for stuff with our phones or with Bitcoin or whatever. And 6 in 10 of the UK's 1p's and 2p's are used once before being left in a jar or discarded, and 1 in 12 are just thrown into the bin.
I mean, that's ridiculous. It would keep them in the jar. Why are you throwing them in the bin? It makes absolutely no sense.
That's when a coin is really on the ropes, when you're just chucking it in the bin. I'd rather throw this away. This is actual money. I'm like, no, I'm just going to bin it.
And it's not like you can make a wish when you throw it in the bin.
No, your wish is you had more money, probably, because well, maybe you're rich if you're just chucking coppers in the bin. But, yeah, my only concern is two things. I mean, one, on the one hand, I don't use copper. When was the last time I saw a copper? I can't remember. I don't really, you know, you get them in little bags. You put them in a bag, then do nothing with them, leave them in a drawer, then one day throw them in a bin.
Oh, but not even copper anymore, which is annoying. They do stick to magnets now.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you tried to magnetise them? See, I can see you doing that at home in an experiment on a Sunday. But my worry is we're heading to the cashless society, of course, where we end up cashless society, digital money, and you have to, like, pledge allegiance to Tony Blair to get your ID card, which is also your money. This is just what Blair said's going to happen. I'm quoting verbatim.
Yeah.
Blair.
The last time I was at a fair, I went on the, you know, the slidey shelf thing with the 2p's.
Yeah.
And so I put, you know, all these 2p's in, and then I won all these 2p's, and I was like, oh, man, this is the worst prize ever.
Chuck them straight in the bin.
Yeah, rather. yeah.
And then finally, Nick, let's see what the Star's going with. Big news.
Big news, Jaws swims up the Thames. So it's a picture of a massive shark. In the picture, it looks absolutely tiny, but that's only presumably part of it. It says a shark has been spotted wending its way up the Thames in London. And you never hear the word wending anymore. The last time you heard the word wending was when you won a Blue Peter badge in the 80s. That'll be wending its way to you. You know what I mean? That's the only time I've ever heard that
It's
phrase.
because there's not very many sharks.
And they wend.
They wend.
I see. So don't go in the sea is the bottom line. I mean, I think we've known this for a while. Ever since Jaws, there are big squids in there.
Yeah.
There are sharks. Don't go in the sea. That's my bottom line. It's
not even the sea. That's the...
Don't go in the Thames, obviously, because it's all poisonous. But
yeah, that's the thing. This story's fun now. Give it 2 days, it'll be dead.
Yeah.
Because this is always the way it goes. Either it gets distressed.
It drinks
Thames
water.
It's definitely got diarrhea right now. We know that for sure. That was a great thing when Eddie Izzard swam the Thames. He constantly got diarrhea from the fecal matter of London.
Really, that's a nice fact.
I really enjoy
people watching at 5 a.m. Also, if he's wending his way into London, he'll probably get stabbed. So I feel a bit bad for the shark.
Leo, can you top that? I get the feeling that I'm not sure if you can.
Well, apparently it's also the hottest July in recorded history. It's like, did these scientists not know we've got the ability to go outside and see how warm it is? It's not the hottest anything ever. It's not even the hottest July this year.
They did it based on the night time, apparently. It's been warm at night. When you're asleep, it gets really warm when you don't notice.
As soon as I shut the door, it's like Toy Story. All the temperatures come out.
That's the front pages covered in part 2. Starmer's honeymoon is over. The young are going for Farage, but not just with milkshakes. And don't be mean about Kamala Harris. So it'll be a short section. See you in a sec.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The sunny spell that many have experienced this week makes this the perfect time to seek inspiration for fresh, beautiful food to fit the weather. Hannah Harley-Young from Crazy Sexy Food joins me once again for the latest in our Taste of Britain series. And to go alongside the return of the glorious sunshine, she recommends tequila.
To be honest with you, it's more about my total love of tequila. It is my favourite drink. I have my favourite cocktail ready to be shaked for you in a second, which is obviously the margarita. But I think also I just love this sort of general story of tequila. Tequila, a bit like with champagne, can only be produced in the region of tequila in Mexico. But I've actually brought for you, interestingly, a brand that is London-based. This was set up by Tom and Jack. They were drinking, I think, in sort of 2018, 2019, somewhere in South London, and realised that tequila could actually be quite enjoyable.
Do you know what it's made of?
It is. It's made from the blue agave plant. Now, 300 million of these plants are harvested every year. It takes between 8 to 12 years to harvest. Their tequila is made to be drank with tonic, which is not your usual accompaniment with tequila. Usually it's lime, it's a margarita. With a Blanco tequila, the idea is that the process is that once it's distilled, that is the end, it's bottled and it's sold. This is the Reposado. I haven't actually opened that, but if you do want to have a smell, you can open it. But the idea behind this is that it's been rested, so it's rested in oak barrels. I actually love people's behaviour behind tequila now. I think back in the day, it had a little slightly bad rep that you'd drink cheap shots and maybe make some bad mistakes on a night out, whereas now we're actually starting to appreciate it and respect it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m, followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain, followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Stephen Allen here with Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. To the Daily Mail, Leo, to get balance, I'll say this before we start. It's St Starmer already helping solve childhood obesity.
Oh, nice. Nicely done. That's how you could spin it. So Corbynites have branded Keir as Sir Kid Starver. They've done a little pun there. As he suspends 7 MPs for rebelling over the 2-child benefit cap. So I think the SNP brought a vote and, he wanted it to be on his own terms, so he didn't want to, take the knee to the SNP. But the Labour left have accused the Prime Minister of using the vote as a macho virility test. I did one of them, I got 1,000,000%. As the party is plunged into fresh crisis ahead of his first Prime Minister's questions grilling today. So, yeah, apparently, the story is he's already struggling to keep a lid on furious Labour infighting. So 7 MPs have defied him. One of the rebels put on ice and they'll be suspended for 6 months as a result of this. One of them, Zara Sultana, who I thought was a parody character for about a year. I kept seeing her tweets coming up and I'm like, this is ridiculous. This is beyond the realms of what could possibly be believable.
With a name like that, it should be on Nick's podcast, The Current Thing.
Thank you very much. Nice plug. You know who agrees with you, Leo, is Sir Kid Starver, because he obviously doesn't rate Sultana much either, because she comes from the loony left of the party. I'm not sure about the actual policy. We do need to encourage a high birth rate, though not amongst sponging people who just exploit the benefits.
I was wondering what you were going to say there.
Oh, sponging people who exploit benefits. Yeah. But I do like the sort of ruthlessness of it. This is what the Tories always struggle to do. This is someone who sort of understands power. It's like, boom, you just get rid of them. That said, Johnson did do it in his ruthless phase. He suspended 21 MPs, didn't he, at that time about the EU. Yeah. But Dominic Cummings pointed out Boris had that ruthless streak when he felt he was under threat. But Starmer is being very Blair. He's in there. He's getting rid of the far-left people and I respect it in that way, in a sort of grim respect for the ruthlessness of it.
And he's got a majority that, allows him to get rid of some of the people and crack the whip over the rest of them. And I think, what's really going to help kids, I think it's a good idea to help kids. There's a lot of kids who are in poverty. I know it's relative poverty. It doesn't necessarily mean, there is poverty in terms of 1940s poverty. But what's really going to help them is lower taxes and also controlled controlling our borders, because, you know, if you've got 1.2 million new people coming in every year, they're people that need to be fed, they're people who need somewhere to live, so rents go up, there's inflation. So I think controlling all of that is key to having a sort of sustainable British population where everybody can afford food, everybody can afford to live a decent life.
Do you think it was also a show of strength in terms of numbers? Because Starmer suspended more MPs than the independents who are trying to club together, and Reform. He's got so many to spare. It's like in that Mad Max. Have you seen the new Mad Max film, that Furiosa, whatever it's called, where one of the guys just like sends one of his war boys to just go kill himself because he's got so many. It's that kind of, get rid of them. Look,
it's a lot like that. Yeah, Starmer's known as the Mad Max of Parliament.
Oh, imagine if that's the way it goes. Nick, on to the Times. Nigel Farage has been connecting with young people online. You lose your job as a newsreader doing that.
Yeah, so it's a good point. It's more under 30s voted Reform than Tory, study finds. So a post-election study of more than 35,000 voters found that 9.5% of 18 to 30-year-olds supported Farage's party. 8% voted Tory. 18%, or almost 18%, voted Green, which is incredibly worrying. And you think, have they actually checked their policies? Because it's not all just about the Wales anymore, guys. Some of it's about destroying the country and undermining the West.
But young people love that.
They love it.
They've really taken the sort of critical race theory, the decolonialisation stuff, hook, line and sinker, and now they want to destroy the UK.
Yeah, that is my concern as well. But there's a claim here that is it really that radical because UKIP got they got a 9% in the 2015 election. I think it is still significant because we've had so much more anti-right-wing propaganda since then, right? Since Brexit and Trump, it's all like become verboten to even be on the right. So to still get 9.5% amongst young people who are worried about fitting in, I think is significant. But the fact that it's dwarfed by the Greens does worry me. And it seems to be more young men, isn't it? It says here 12% of men back Reform compared to 6% of women amongst 18 to 24-year-olds. So it's young men, it's what we know. They see Farage on TikTok, think, hey, he's pretty cool, he's pretty funny, but will they vote for him is a question as well, which is not quite clear whether it actually converts to voting.
Will they even vote? They might like the idea of voting for him, but they don't even know how to.
But it would be funny for Labour to reduce the voting age and then they all voted for Farage. Would be amazing. That would be bants.
Yeah. Is this story burying the lead a bit? Because actually it's about the massive collapse of the Tory support in that age group.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, the Tory support has dropped by 20 percentage points in just under a decade for the under 31s. And I think, you know, the average age of a Tory voter now is something around, it's like 81 or something like that. So basically, you know, if you can cast that vote before you climb into the casket, that's handy.
Do postal. Please do postal voting. You never know, there's a chance they die.
I find that very ageist. Next you'll be saying that Joe Biden wasn't fit to run America.
But I think what we're seeing across Europe, you know, like the AfD, parties like that, and Marine Le Pen's party in France, the National Rally, whatever they're called, they're getting a lot of support from young people because young people are seeing that this sort of neoliberal mainstream parties are just abandoning them and aren't acting in their best interests at all. So I think that's going to happen in the UK. I think people in the UK, young people in the UK, are waking up to that as well.
And they probably don't realise that they're not supposed to like it. Do you know what I mean? They're just like young people, they're on the internet, they don't care what the mainstream media is telling them. They look at their lives, they look at the mess that their countries in, they go, yeah, OK, I'll go with that guy.
Yeah.
Right, Leo, the Independent, knife crime is on the up, and for our posh viewers, that's not using the starter one when it should be the fish one.
So knife crime offences rise and shoplifting reaches a 20-year high in the latest police figures. Knife crime offences have risen by 4% since last year, with a notable increase in the number of robberies involving a bladed weapon, which are up 13%. Meanwhile, the number of shoplifting offences has risen to a new 20-year high to almost 500,000 offences. Now, this could be, I mean, I used to work as a criminal intelligence analyst, and this could be because if you've got a drug habit to sustain, which many of us do working on this show, then burglary is a risky thing to do. There's a high risk of it. It's treated quite seriously by the police. Car theft, there's not much you can nick from a car that you can sell anymore. There's no radios, there's no sat-nav or anything anymore. So shoplifting is a quick and easy way and isn't punished very hard. And it's a way you can quickly and easily get, enough to sell down the pub to get some money. And again, the robberies involving a bladed weapon, it's, although it's obviously a more serious offence, it's a way to get money or get phones that you can then turn into money. It's not like the old days where you could nick DVD players and sell them. People don't have those things anymore.
Yeah, all streaming. But also, it feels like we've had the war on knives for so long. Let's try and sort this problem with the knives. And look at these stats.
Those blooming knives going out there, doing all those crimes on their own. Yeah, I was listening to this on an app, and it kept saying, it sounded like it was saying shoplifting, and I realised that'd be a great name for combining knife crime and shoplifting, is sharplifting. Yeah. So I'm going to claim that as my own neologism. But yeah, Yvette Cooper's blaming this on the disgraceful direction of the last Tory government on law and order, but she's also not saying all the other things like mass immigration, all these things we don't want to talk about. And are Labour really going to do anything about law and order that the Tories didn't do? I hope they do. Maybe they will. I hope they do. Let's wait and see.
Yeah, I can't see Keir Starmer suddenly turning into Bukele.
Maybe, because he can get away with it. He's not the nasty party, he's the nice party, so he can do what he wants. Maybe he will.
So and maybe who knows?
Nick, The Guardian, Republicans want no personal attacks on the woman Trump has already called dumb as a rock.
Well, he put it in quotes, so he was presumably just quoting someone else, Steve. How dare you? Yeah, Republican leaders urge party to avoid racist and sexist attacks against Harris, and the argument is go against her for a terrible record and a terrible character rather than her immutable characteristics, which seems like a reasonable approach. I mean, she's going to play the card, I'm a woman, I'm a black woman, and all this, and they're going to hit that really hard because it's basically all she's got. And there's this issue about abortion, and and the Republicans are seen as being like nasty on abortion now ever since Roe versus Wade was overturned. Trump's actually rolled back his position and said, I'm leaving it up to the state, but they will use that constantly. And so, yeah, I think it's reasonable to just go at Harris for her complete sort of non-entity status. I mean, no one voted for her really in the primaries. She was terrible in that. No one actually wants her. The media's doing this massive snow job now, telling her, oh, she's amazing and brilliant. And in 10 seconds ago, everyone knew she was useless. We've all got to go along with that. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's probably a stronger tactic for them to just hit it on everything else. And the question is, will this identity politics work? For example, black men seem to have really gone to Trump now. Mike Tyson announced he was voting Trump. I can't see him going back to Kamala, but black women vote for Kamala. They're definitely going Kamala.
Yeah.
So it's just identity politics versus competence. I mean, can you imagine Kamala Harris dealing with Putin or Xi? It's just terrifying. Guys, you need to be unburdened by what has been. It's like, what are you talking about?
And laughing.
And then laughing hysterically. And the Chinese are going, what is she doing? This is offensive. No, this is what she does. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
She's not even good at golf. Trump's brilliant at golf.
Yeah, I think the identity politics is not that much of a worry, is it? It's not as if Trump's never won an election against a woman before.
Yeah, but I mean, with Hillary, I don't think they're banging on. I guess she was banging on quite a lot about being a woman, but now banging on about being black, being, she's probably going to invent some gender and sexuality as well, and being a woman. It's almost like a trap. It's like they've got this candidate who's just going to bang on about being, a black woman. This is such a big deal. And obviously for the left, who are completely identitarian and judge people purely on their immutable characteristics, judge people purely on their skin colour rather than the content of their character or what their record is, they're going to vote for Kamala. All the childless women who are the biggest threat to civilization, I think we can say without any controversy, are going to be channeling their curdled empathy into the wrong direction, into horrific communist policies. She's the sort of original DEI hire. So although it would sort of draw out Trump and make him appear like a bad guy if he was attacking her like that, I think you should avoid that trap. And just like comedians do it, everybody else is going to be doing it. So Trump doesn't need to do it.
And just very briefly, one point: the DEI hire thing. Some of the left are sort of saying that's like a kind of synonymous with some sort of racist attack, but it's not. It's about merit, and lots of black people hate DEI because then it implies that they're not there by merit, so they hate that as well, and women.
Leo, the Daily Mail, asylum seekers complain they were kept in prison-like conditions. If it was like a prison, you'd have been released already.
So, 4 asylum seekers sue the Home Office over prison-like conditions at ex-RAF base used to house migrants. So it's good enough for our military, apparently, who risk their lives to protect us, but it's not good enough for these asylum seekers. They say they were caged in prison-like conditions and plagued by scabies, and squabbling migrants would fight one another in food queues. I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily the government's fault or the Home Office's fault that the migrants squabbled and fought each other in the food queues, but barristers representing the 4 men, who are probably paid for out of our taxes through legal aid, every step of the way we're paying for this. They all stayed at this former airbase between July 2023 and February 2024. They claim it was seriously inadequate and that gunfire from a nearby shooting range had triggered traumatic memories for some who must have seen Rambo 3. That's got a lot of gunfire in it. It's not very good.
Yeah, it's just a very 2024 story, isn't it? I mean, they're suing the asylum seekers are suing the Home Office. I mean, if they win, it's a new level of anarcho-tyranny. You know, I have used this phrase before on the show. I've used the phrase the apotheosis of anarcho-tyranny, but this would be the true zenith of anarcho-tyranny. But I'm not a complete monster. They should have locks on their doors. I mean, why don't they have locks on the doors? That would stop some of the fighting, presumably, right?
Yeah.
So that's my concession to being a liberal.
That would make it even more like a prison.
True.
That's part 2 all done. In part 3, broken windows is still a computer thing. Long shot COVID and threesomes on trial. Find out more next.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Gloomy skies overnight and into the start of Thursday for many of us. Outbreaks of rain, but it will turn brighter later on. Now, we started Wednesday with a ridge of high pressure. Didn't last long. Weather fronts are now moving in from the west and they are thickening up the cloud in many parts of the UK and bringing extensive low cloud to western parts and southern parts of the country with hill fog, coastal mist and areas of rain and drizzle. Nevertheless, with the largely cloudy skies overnight, it is going to remain mild, in some places rather muggy, 15 or 16 Celsius first thing. But if you're in the south and southwest, expect a gloomy start to Thursday. A lot of low cloud covering the hills, bringing some mist and fog to coastal parts as well, and some more persistent and heavier bursts of rain into South Cornwall and South Devon through the morning. Wales, cloudy and damp, the worst of the drizzle and low cloud over hills. Likewise for northwest England, but for Scotland and Northern Ireland, something a little brighter first thing, certainly for eastern Scotland, some sunny spells coming through, largely dry here, showers pushing into western Scotland. And through the morning, we're going to see things cheer up across the northern two-thirds of the UK. The cloud will lift. There will be some cloud breaks, although there will still be some showers arriving across western Scotland, Northern Ireland into northern England. Mostly dry for Wales by the afternoon, as well as the Midlands, but for the south and southeast, outbreaks of rain, heavy at times, and as a result, significantly cooler compared with Wednesday. That rain's out of the way by Friday morning, and then for most, it's a much brighter start to the day. Sunny spells, but further showers are likely in places, especially, although not exclusively, across Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales and Western England. Saturday, more widespread and heavier downpours for a time, interspersed by sunny spells, sunshine on Sunday.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Now, Nick, we go to Thursday's Daily Mail. The Windows crash caused by DEI in IT. Surely not a problem, because have you ever called an IT desk? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Did DEI crash 8.5 million computers? CrowdStrike probed for sidelining its white male coders. So that's a classic mistake. Obviously, we know coders should be autistic white men. Basically, the panel here, we could easily have been coders, just with a slightly different brains. You could probably do it now, Steve.
I'm a Linux man. Yeah. Oh, I love
I could see you coding away. So, look, DEI nearly killed the president. Now it's nearly killed the internet or whatever. I mean, 8.5 million computers. But this Conservative Legal Action Group, America First Legal, has launched this action, but they're not claiming that it directly caused the outage or whatever, or the crash, but they are saying, look, this CrowdStrike are using, they're doing all kinds of DEI type things. On their website, they talk about commitment to building a diverse workforce. They use this interesting phrase, a progressive atmosphere that promotes black diversity. Now, I'm a mere layman in these matters, but it strikes me as a bit of an oxymoron, black diversity. I mean, how diverse is the colour black? I mean, it's extraordinary. So So everyone's sick of DEI. I mean, and they say here, look, it's patently unlawful, deeply harmful, and immoral. And there's decades of case law hold that. But we know that it's not about what laws exist. It's who enacts the laws and who gets to decide, in Carl Schmitt's phrase, who gets to decide the exception. You know, who gets to actually enact the laws and choose which ones they actually follow or not.
Yeah, interestingly, a lot of conservative pressure groups are suing law companies for their illegal DEI strategies because the law firms then advise lots of clients, so it's more effective than going after big corporations. But yeah, this is, I mean, the impact of DEI, I think it's obvious when you watch, you know, Disney and you see how awful everything is and how, you know, DEI is just crowbarred in. But, you know, nobody dies from it's not a sort of mission-critical thing. What we're seeing now is more complex systems failing, such as this, you know, computer thing, whatever it is. And also,
and the Secret Service.
And Boeing and the Secret Service. And this is, you know, now it's getting real. You know, people, we're having a real impact on the economy, a real impact on people's lives as well. And people say, oh, it's misogyny, it's racism if you don't like DEI. No, DEI is explicitly itself racist and sexist and all the rest of it.
The argument would be more persuasive if they didn't use that voice. But sorry, carry on.
Funnily enough, the reason there's so many trans people, trans women, you know, women like me, in the world of computing and programming and software development is apparently, and I read this on Twitter, it's probably true, is because it's easier to get a male coder and get him to transition than it is to get a woman.
I instantly believe that. The men are good at coding. Is that so bad to say then? Autistic men are brilliant at coding. We love them. What's wrong with that? Everyone's got different skills. It's not a problem. Though I was offended what you said about Disney because I really enjoyed the last 18 Star Wars films about how white men are evil. Star Wars 18, white men are still awful.
Leo, The Telegraph, the biggest war of our time continues. Israel versus the BBC.
So Israel complains to the BBC over a report of a death of a disabled Palestinian mauled by a military dog, an Israeli IDF dog. So this was a man with Down syndrome mauled by an IDF attack dog in Gaza. So the BBC just reported it as, you know, this disabled Palestinian guy's been mauled to death by a dog. But they didn't mention that prior to attacking the man, the combat dog had detected terrorists in the family home. That detail was omitted from the BBC piece, which gives, you know, an important bit of context. It's like the guy getting kicked in the head. It's like when you find out he broke a police or may have broken a police officer's nose, a police woman's nose, it changes the context. And also the family had refused to leave the area. They'd been given a warning by the IDF to leave. So they, you know, I'd leave. If the IDF were coming into my town, I'd probably leave and then go back when they'd gone back. I'm not sure. I mean, it says the combat dog had detected terrorists. I mean, he's presumably trained to sniff out explosives and stuff. I don't know if he can sniff out terrorists. They're not made from a different type of person.
They've got a different odour. They often have a different cologne.
Yeah.
That might be what it is. Any sympathy for the BBC on this one, Nick? Just try and see if I can scrape some balance out of you.
Yeah, I am a little torn on this because the BBC have been clearly anti-Israel. I think it's almost... I think you can say that. They didn't want to call Hamas a terrorist organisation and so on. Certainly my subjective impression is that they have been pretty anti-Israel. But then you look at this story, of course it does sound horrific. I mean, when they're saying there's not sufficient context, still, this kid with Down syndrome, whatever, who was left to die, still sounds... It is still bad, but the BBC, yeah, they had the headline, The Lonely Death of a Gaza Man with Down Syndrome. Of course, they changed that to Gaza Man with Down Syndrome attacked by IDF dog and left to die, mother tells the BBC, which is a bit more sort of strictly accurate. But it's still pretty horrific, even with all the facts. It's not great.
Yeah, but war is horrific.
Yeah.
Yep. Nick, the Daily Mail, and brain fog and pains might not be caused by long COVID. It could be that you're 4 years older and you've had 2 kids since then. That last bit's more of a me problem.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same. It's long COVID cannot be blamed for constant tiredness, brain fog, or muscle pain, study suggests. It's like, yeah, maybe you're just a 40-year-old human. You know, those are the symptoms. And lo and behold, anyone with common sense heard long COVID and they went... that's kind of BS, isn't it? It just sounded like BS, and now it officially totally is, because they did a study and they just found that there was no difference between those who tested positive and those that hadn't. And you know, the average participant was about 38, which proves what I said about a 40-year-old. 68% of the patients were female.
You're just...
That means I'm not even going to comment on it, but you just have to... That means I'm not even going to say anything. I'm just reading facts. But people... Well, I'll give you one thing. Long COVID has also been thrust into the spotlight recently as Ben Affleck's daughter argued in favour of mask mandates. I mean, that was just narcissism run amok, wasn't it? But... Look, I always suspected it was a way of people working from home who didn't want to go back to work, so they said, I've got long COVID, and this study just proves me right, really.
Doesn't that study more prove that if you get a virus, you can have chronic fatigue, and COVID is not a worse virus?
Yes, it's not unique, yeah. But that's the same thing.
It's not a swinging the lead working from home thing. It's you get a virus, you might get chronic...
Yeah, but no one talks about long flu or long cold.
That's the error, but the conclusion isn't like, oh, they were making it up.
No, you can feel rough for ages, definitely, but no one... It's not a thing in society, is it?
But I've got a friend who got long COVID, and she works for the NHS. She was in the hospitals when they didn't have the PPE, didn't have vaccines and all the rest of it. So she got it in the line of duty. You know, she was right in the front line when, you know, it was just her and the people who work in Tesco's who are going out and risking their lives for us. And she had a horrific time with it. She's had all kinds of problems with her joints and her lungs and her heart. And so I think, you know, you can get horrific... COVID can cause horrific problems.
Well, I take back everything I said. You can have horrific long COVID.
I guess that's different from, like, this. This is just, like, brain fog and muscle pain and stuff. It's just general sort of, like, fatigue.
Yeah, how about this? You can have horrible... It can be real in some instances, like the one you mentioned. Other people are just saying they have it.
Yeah.
Good. We've agreed.
Nick, the Daily Mail, and woman thought she could migrate to the UK to be with her 2 lovers. I suspect someone's about to get roasted.
Woman loses bid to move to UK to join her 2 male lovers and vows to take legal action against British government for discriminating against polygamous relationships. I mean, the insanity of this. So she was from South Africa, and she says that this is unfair because polygamy is legal in South Africa. I've got an idea. Go live in South Africa. I mean, am I a hater for saying that? Because we do things a bit differently. We don't like it here. We don't stop bringing your weird perversion. Leo is the only foreign pervert that should be allowed in the country. This is my position. It's absolutely ridiculous. You don't get to like sue the country because we don't want to observe your absurd relationship. That is my take. Sorry, I mean...
Well, in terms of, like, weird ideas that could be harmful to the country that people bring to the UK, this is pretty low down the list. And also, I don't understand, you know, if there are people... Like, the UK recognises polygamous marriages if they're formed or they're signed off in a country where it's legal. So I nearly bought a house off a guy who had 2 wives. And there's 2 beds in the master bedroom.
Was the deal that one of his wives would stay in the house? Why did you not go through it?
I don't know how they... No, he had all the building regs and stuff were fake and brown paper, you know, brown envelope jobs and stuff. Really? So we decided to walk away rather than buy. And also he's lying to us about stuff. So we thought, you know, you can't buy a house off somebody who's lying. But that's getting away from this story.
That is almost Lewis Schaefer levels.
I thought you would like this story because if all people applying to move to the UK required 2 spouses, you'd halve the number of migrants. This could be the best plan that the government could have to finally get the figures down to the tens of thousands.
And also it would mean more women coming. Oh, no, it's 2 men in this case.
It's 2 men in this case.
Yeah.
Take out the 2 men, so they'd be busy, so it would leave more women left over in the UK.
Oh, yeah. Would it?
That's
too complicated. You're bringing in more
That's
men.
your coding mind. We can't even follow it.
Yeah. I'll do a flip chart thing in the break. But meanwhile, we are 3/4 done. Still to come. Reading, smelling, and knowing when to go to the toilet. I'd say now, during the ad break. You've got 2 minutes. Hold your nose and blow.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Most people will be familiar with French artists such as Auguste Renoir, Claude Monet and Camille Pissarro, who, with others, made up the Impressionist movement of the late 19th century. But we are probably less familiar with the British contingent of the Impressionists, artists like Frank Bramley, Elizabeth Armstrong Forbes and Walter Langley, amongst many others. David Messam is on a mission to change that. I'm joined by David Messam and by Patrick Duffy, an esteemed archivist. These people we're talking about, are they really Impressionists? I mean, I assume they're British, but are they Impressionists?
I think we had the same query when we wrote a book about the whole thing in '85, actually. And we were The book nearly went out as A Garden of Bright Images, actually, though my author then, Laura Wortley, was quite insistent that it should be called A Garden of Bright Images, but I thought it would probably be put in the gardening section, actually. So, you know, the question you ask is what is on other people's minds, too, actually. Have we got Impressionism in this country? I think for me, as I used to do quite a lot of shopping, if you like, in America, looking for English pictures out there, and they've got American Impressionism. I'm quite happy with it, but the English are different.
Were they friends and colleagues? Were they collaborators with the French Impressionists?
Broadly speaking, British Impressionism is, as we term it, is the post-Impressionist movement. So they were certainly inspired by the French Impressionist movement as it was, but they came later. They travelled around Europe and became attuned to en plein air painting, so painting outdoors, and that's what they brought over with them. We call it British realism, but there's a focus.
British realism, I kind of recognise.
Yeah,
I mean that's exactly what that
Exactly. The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and Leo, straight into Thursday's Guardian. Do you still read for pleasure? I do. Fan mail. I've read that email 1,000 times by now.
So more than a third of UK adults have given up reading for pleasure. Study finds half of adults in the UK do not regularly read for pleasure, suggesting that journalists and people who do studies on this have given up maths, because a third have given up and a half don't. So I don't know how they're working.
Minus a sixth don't do anything.
Yeah. So social media distraction, lack of time, and difficulty focusing are factors in my poor performance tonight. No, in the decline of reading for pleasure. But I think more people are reading for pain. So maybe it's balancing out.
Yeah, newspapers.
Some of it is ridiculous. I mean, 23% of respondents agreed with the statement, I cannot find things to read that interest me. That's called being dumb. But some of the things are more valid. I mean, 17% need guidance on how to choose books. Go to nickdixon.net. I've got my top 10 novels. I used to read 100 novels a year. It's my whole thing. I've got an MA in literature my whole life. But then I've stopped. And I occasionally still do, and I need to do it more. But I listen to audiobooks for non-fiction, but fiction I think you have to read. But the idea of people just... It is sad, that the decline of reading for pleasure. Do you guys even read fiction, or is it just all... just far-right political stuff?
I just read... I go on Twitter and read that, and that's fact.
That's the problem,
That's
isn't it?
all fact.
It's so hard to come off and actually read a book when you've got Twitter just filling your mind with horror.
And also, they've done this thing these days where they take, like, works of fiction and they make them into films, and they're, like, really brill.
Yeah.
So I do that.
Yeah.
You can see the stuff.
You can see the stuff.
But
Some of the
sometimes-
actors and actresses, they're all very attractive. So I'd recommend it.
Well, you're all Philistines.
Better than I read it, and the people in my head are terrible. So it's much better. The ones
That's a separate problem.
Nick, the Daily Mail, big hair slows you down when running. I'm off to the Paris Olympics. I'm a natural.
Yeah, true. I mean, how could we have not seen this coming? Athletes competing in the 100 metres at the Paris Olympic Games could wear hair caps. That's capitalised. That's why I've shouted it. To level the playing field, scientists claim. As research reveals, flowing locks slow you down by up to 0.07 seconds. And at my level, Steve, that makes all the difference. This comes from Heriot Watt University in Edinburgh, and they've figured out this genius thing, don't have flowing hair. And everyone knew it made a difference in certain sports like cycling and speed skating, but they didn't in track and field. Very interesting story.
Yeah, and some people have got really, like, unaerodynamic hair as well. But swimmers, I think swimmers shave themselves.
Yeah.
And, you know...
Cyclists do as well, don't they?
Yes, cyclists do. And also, if you've got a car that's going to be in a race, you wax it so it's nice and smooth and the air goes over it smoothly. So, yeah, it makes sense for runners.
You do need every advantage these days as well, particularly if you're a woman competing against loads of big men in your
It's
sport.
the big hair that slows them down.
Yeah,
That's why.
That's
women
what
don't
it
do
is.
so-
It's not the fact they're up against biological men.
Yeah,
it makes so
it's
much
the long
but,
hair.
But actually, the biological male genitals aren't very aerodynamic, so
Good point. Holds us back.
Not be.
So they
Swings
should,
and roundabouts, literally.
they should give the biological females a handicap when they're competing against the trans
Good
males
point.
who are
That's a great
encumbered with this extra burden.
That's why I wax mine. Leo, the Independent. Do men like the smell of fertile women? It doesn't matter. Stop scent marking my garden, Debbie.
Men may not actually be attracted to fertile women's scent, study finds. Well, speak for yourself. So previous research, including one published in 2018, suggested that straight men's attraction to women's body odour may vary over the ovulation cycle, peaking around the fertile window, which makes sense. But it's a case of, what makes sense guiding the study, because in this research, 91 straight men rated the scents of 29 unfamiliar women at different stages of their menstrual cycle by hiding in a toilet. So they rated them on attractiveness, pleasantness and intensity. They say it's simulating a first encounter. I mean, it's not exactly simulating a first encounter, is it? You know what I mean?
Two dogs.
Yeah, there's normally you have half a pint of Foster's or something, and you know what I mean?
I mean, what can you say? It's obviously not the fertility that attracts us to women. It's their ideas and career achievements. What?
Why did you say that?
Because it's this thing, there's this meme on the internet that actually men are allegedly don't care about those things, women, they only care about looks. So there's a kind of joke about that, but it's a very deep internet joke. I regret saying
Just
it.
for a bit of
I
analysis
zoned
of
out
the
on
actual
show.
story. It makes sense. We're one species that hides fertility cycles in women because you want to have pair bonding long term. This is why you don't have like a big bottom that glows red like some other primates.
I do.
There we go. Nick, the Telegraph, and time to throw that old condom out of my wallet.
Well, that seems separate to this, but yeah, miracle new anti-HIV jab could revolutionise virus protection. So lenacapavir, let's say, is this new incredibly effective vaccine. I mean, they say it's got vaccine-like potential, so presumably that means it doesn't work, and the government are going to pressure you to have it for no reason. But actually,
you have a stroke 2 weeks later.
This is one of the good ones. So it's they gave it to 2,134 women, and it worked in every case or something. So yeah, we could have a cure. And I've written a note here I can't read because I've got HIV. No, I haven't.
The eye.
This is my last ever show.
20 seconds. Any thoughts on it?
Eazy-E got HIV from Freddie Mercury, according to a song that I listened to. But yeah, the downside of this is it could increase risky sex and increase STDs.
OK, well, that's something.
Don't do that.
Non-HIV STDs.
Try and avoid on the weekend.
Fun story to end on.
Yeah, with that mental image, let's say the show's nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages for you. We start with the Times, and Labour plans thousands of offshore wind farms. The Daily Mail goes with, is this the end of our copper coins? Guardian, revealed, rich Western countries lead global gas and oil expansion. The Telegraph says, Tugendhat, I'm ready to leave the ECHR. The Express goes with senior army officer stabbed outside barracks, and the Daily Star, Jaws swims up the Thames. So do watch out for that. That's all we've got time for. Thank you to my guests, Leo and Nick. We are back tomorrow at 11 with Andrew Doyle in the chair, Lewis Schaefer, and Nick will be back, so good luck with that. If you're watching at 5 in the morning, stay tuned for breakfast. Until the next time, have yourself a good one.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Gloomy skies overnight and into the start of Thursday for many of us. Outbreaks of rain, but it will turn brighter later on. Now, we started Wednesday with a ridge of high pressure. Didn't last long. Weather fronts are now moving in from the west, and they are thickening up the cloud in many parts of the UK and bringing extensive low cloud to western parts and southern parts of the country, with hill fog, coastal mist and areas of rain and drizzle. Nevertheless, with the largely cloudy skies overnight, it is going to remain mild in some places, rather muggy, 15 or 16 Celsius first thing. But if you're in the south and southwest, expect a gloomy start to Thursday. A lot of low cloud covering the hills, bringing some mist and fog to coastal parts as well, and some more persistent and heavier bursts of rain into South Cornwall and South Devon through the morning. Wales, cloudy and damp, the worst of the drizzle and low cloud over hills. Likewise for northwest England, But for Scotland and Northern Ireland, something a little brighter first thing, certainly for eastern Scotland. Some sunny spells coming through, largely dry here, showers pushing into western Scotland. And through the morning, we're going to see things cheer up across the northern two-thirds of the UK. The cloud will lift. There will be some cloud breaks, although there will still be some showers arriving across western Scotland, Northern Ireland into northern England. Mostly dry for Wales by the afternoon, as well as the Midlands, but for the south and southeast, outbreaks of rain, heavy at times, and as a result, significantly cooler compared with Wednesday. That rain's out of the way by Friday morning, and then for most, it's a much brighter start to the day. Sunny spells, but further showers are likely in places, especially, although not exclusively, across Scotland, Northern Ireland, West Wales and western England. Saturday, more widespread and heavier downpours for a time, interspersed by sunny spells, sunshine on Sunday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.